blank, but don't worry about the fill in the blank so much because it's really basic stuff. I've tried to make this one as, boy, if I haven't hit a winner this time, I'll never hit one, because I really can't pick each of these questions to be very basic and very straightforward, also very important. Okay, so let's get started. When we think about the muscular system, what are we thinking? What is it? What word comes to mind immediately? Come on, we got to get this going, so we're going to have to overcome your shyness. I don't care what your answers are, just come out with something. Okay, let's start with it. It is the functional unit of what?
Myofibril.
A muscle.
Okay, what does it do? What's the whole function of everything in the muscular system?
Contraction.
Contraction. Okay, I know that sounds crazy, I know that sounds fundamental, but you'd be surprised how many people would get that. So you got to know which each of these systems are. Someone asked the same thing about respiratory, when we get there, what's that? Yeah. So, it's the exchange of gases. We will provide oxygen for the system to be able to remove waste gas and carbon dioxide. And then it does some other things, but that's basically it. All right. When you think of a muscle, when you think of the structure of a muscle, so I guess it would be best if I put something like a diagram on the board, but it's really wrapped. This exam is composed of 90 questions. So when you look at a muscle, it looks like this. Why does it look like that? Skeletal muscle. What's here and what's at the ends? What is that?
Connective tissue.
Kind of connective tissue. What's it called?
Tendons and
Tendons. Why is it a tendon? It's muscle to bone. Tendon, muscle to bone. Bone to bone. Cement ligament. Under that. So you should know the basic structure, and then obviously you know the breakdown of the structure from the muscle, and then you go down through the various groupings until you get to the myofibril. So you should be able to know that part of it. You should know those various structures that make up, and then the very last one, the functional unit, which you just identified, which is the sarcomere. So if we do a cross-section of this, and we look at it, so this is the muscle, right? Muscle bundle, whatever you want to call it. What's the next level? We start looking in here, do a cross-section. So what's the covering of the muscle? What's that called? Epimysium. So then what's the next layer that goes on beyond that? Where do you go from there?
Pyramus.
Correct. And the one after that? Okay, endomysium. And what does the endomysium cover? What's it called? Muscle fascicle, muscle, whatever, okay? Anyway, you should know that as to the various levels, and you should know what the coverings are. Remember, none of these things are in and of themselves the essential part of whether you're going to get through this exam and do well. It's just that you might lose that one point. So if you want to know it, then you should know all of it. You know, the divisions of the muscle, right down in the coverings for each of them, okay? So how does a muscle contract? What happens? Basically, go through all the steps. What are the components? What do you need to have a muscle contraction?
calcium.
Structural components.
Actin.
Right. You need a thick and a thin film. Thick is called myosin, thin is called actin. That's what I call basics. Need to know basics. Okay? So you have those two, and how do they interact to cause could cause a contraction? What do?
Overlap one another.
You show yourself with your finger. You're in the exams, and you just go like this. That's it. Okay? It's the interlapping of the actin and myosin. That's basic. Okay? We can talk about all the details of how that happens and all the structures that are involved with it, but you got to start from the beginning and understand where you're going to go from there to make these things make sense to you. Okay, so how would you describe the difference between the different muscle cells? So what's the majority of this chapter discussing when you talk about muscles? What are they talking about? Skeletal muscle, right. So obviously skeletal muscle is the most important. We didn't, although cardiac's important, and although we mentioned smooth muscle, we didn't go into it in the detail because it's the skeletal muscle that really controls the bodily movements voluntarily. Smooth muscle is involuntary. Cardiac is a combination of both, but primarily involuntary. Why is it involuntary? What does cardiac muscle have that the others don't? What does it have? Sorry, Dan. It does have intercalated discs, and that's an important distinction, but how is it that it can be both voluntary and involuntary? How's that possible?
With the sinoatrial valve?
What's that?
The sinoatrial valve?
Exactly.
That's the
It has a pacemaker. It has an SA node that starts every time you can pull a heart. You've seen that in high school. They do it. They pull a heart out of the frog and pull it in saline, and it just continues to beat for the entire period. Okay? It's called automaticity. It's automatic. It automatically goes no matter what. And it always defaults to that. It's kind of like your computer, your default program. Okay? You can alter that, okay, by neuronal inputs, but it has that and it functions on its own. So now we've done the first page. Let's continue. Okay, that we did. Okay, so how does the actin and the myosin filaments interact? How does that work? Let's do that part of it. The diagrams probably suck, but at least we'll get something down there. Those of you can see my mess. So, what is this depicting? What is this thing?
Actin.
It's what?
Actin.
Yeah. Okay. So this is an actin. And what are the various components that you need to understand? So what are these round things called? They're what? Okay, so each individual one is a G actin. And together, they're called what? F actin. The individuals are G. Now, on the Gs, they have two parts to them. They have the top and the bottom. Here we go. And in your book, it depicts it like this. Okay. So what's this part? It's in orange. That's the active site. That's the site that's essential to have contraction occur. So what's this overlying layer of orange? What is it? It's called tropomyosin. And what's the blue thing? Troponin. So the orange stuff is tropomyosin, and the blue stuff is troponin. So to have a contraction happen, how do you expose the active sites on the G actin?
Calcium.
Okay, so we got something up here. It's got holes in it. What's it called?
Sarcola.
The sarcoplasmic reticulum. And it has ends, and what are those called? Terminal cisternae at the ends. And in this area, as an action potential runs down